That night, the sky over Beijing was shrouded in a thin fog that reflected the city's lights like a half-awake dream. Behind the glittering lights of the metropolis, there was one quiet space, a small studio that looked ordinary from the outside, but inside, an extraordinary story finally found its light. Wang Yibo sat quietly in the corner of the room, illuminated only by a dim yellow hanging lamp. His gaze fell on a cup of warm tea that had remained untouched since earlier. His voice was soft, almost like a whisper afraid to disturb the night. "I don't know where to begin," he said. But that night changed everything. What he meant was the night when he and Xiao Zhan were on the roof of the building, far from the cameras, far from the crowd, just the two of them and the silent sky as their witness. They had just finished filming the collaborative project that reunited these two big stars after being separated for so long by rumors and their respective busy schedules. No one suspected that behind their professional interactions lay deeper emotional currents than mere colleagues. Even their loyal fans could only speculate from video clips, glances, and the warmth of smiles that seemed too genuine to be mere acting. The night Wang Yibo referred to was no ordinary night. Xiao Zhan, wearing a black jacket to shield him from the cold wind, looked up at the sky and said, "We're like two stars that have been in the same orbit too often, but always fail to collide." Yibo turned his head, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. It wasn't because of the poetic words, but because of the honesty hidden within them. There was sadness, there was hope, and there was something they had never dared to say. Those words were like a key opening the doors that had been tightly closed in their hearts all along. Wang Yibo admitted that night he mustered the courage to ask the question that had been haunting him all along. "Is all of this just friendship to you?" He looked at Xiao Zhan nervously, unlike the usually calm and confident Yibo in front of the camera. Xiao Zhan didn't answer immediately. He just sighed and looked out at the city twinkling below. Then he said softly, "I could never call it just that." And in the silence that followed, both of them knew there was no going back. The feelings that had been hidden behind busy schedules, behind deliberately avoided glances, finally found their place. No grand declarations or dramatic hugs were needed, just the silence filled with understanding, an acknowledgement that didn't require many words. From that night on, their relationship changed. Not drastically, nor was it immediately announced to the world. But anyone observant enough could see it. The way Yibo looked at Xiao Zhan with more tenderness, the way Xiao Zhan laughed more genuinely when with Yibo, all became subtle clues that quietly tugged at the hearts of fans. But the world of celebrities is never simple. Anything that cannot be clearly defined becomes the target of speculation. And they knew it. That's why, for years, both of them chose to remain silent. Not because they were ashamed, but because they were protecting something sacred to them. But time, as always, finds its way. And that night, when a senior journalist interviewed Wang Yibo for an unplanned documentary project that turned into an emotional confession, everything changed. Without a script, without censorship, Yibo spoke from the heart. "I just want to be honest," he said, looking into the camera. "So many people have been wondering, and we've never given an answer. But if that night hadn't happened, maybe I'd still be silent." His eyes were teary, but there was no regret. There was only sincerity and courage. After keeping the secret for so long, Wang Yibo chose to reveal his feelings, not for publicity, not for sensationalism, but for himself, and for someone who had quietly filled his heart. Xiao Zhan himself has not made an official statement. But through his Weibo account, he posted a single sentence that sparked thousands of comments within minutes. "A falling star is not a sign of the end, but the beginning of honesty." The sentence was simple, but for those who knew his story, it was an answer. And in a world full of pretense, the courage to love in silence and then finally speak honestly is a rare form of sincerity. Their story is not about two idols secretly falling in love. It is about two people who found comfort in each other's company and the courage to finally say, "This is more than just friendship." Now, fans no longer see them as just two big names who happen to be in the same project, but as two souls once bound by fear, and now beginning to learn to walk side by side in the light. That fateful night was not the end of their story. It was the beginning. The start of a new story that doesn't need to be constantly shared with the public, but is felt through their presence with one another. Because the strongest love is the kind that doesn't need to be explained. It's enough to feel it. Since that night, nothing has truly returned to the way it was before. Though the public still sees them through the lens of a camera, the smiles they exchange on stage now carry a different meaning. There's a maturity in their demeanor, and a kind of calmness that only those who have weathered an inner storm and chosen to stay possess. At a recent award ceremony, the two sat not far apart. The camera briefly captured their eyes meeting, and in a split second, their expressions changed, as if another world opened between them, understood only by two hearts that knew each other so deeply. Nothing needed to be said, yet everything felt so clear. There was a small moment that almost went unnoticed by the cameras, when Xiao Zhan dropped something and Wang Yibo, without a second thought, bent down to help him. Their eye contact lingered a little longer than it should have. As if they were whispering something through their gaze, something only they understood the meaning of. The fans, who had been diligently reading the small signs, caught that moment like a missing piece of a puzzle. They weren't just speculating, they felt like they were part of the story slowly taking shape. And perhaps that's why love that grows quietly feels more touching, because it emerges from a quiet space, not from a glittering stage. Yet behind it all, they remain cautious. They know the world they stand in isn't always kind to honesty that defies public expectations. But they also know that a life lived in the shadows isn't a life fully free. So they slowly but surely build a bridge between the private world and the public world, between feeling and courage. Not everyone will understand. Not everyone will accept. But for the first time, that no longer matters. Because at the core of this story, it is not recognition that is the goal, but the freedom to love without fear. And that, for them, is enough to begin something new. And on another quiet night, far from the camera's spotlight, they sat side by side once more. Few words were spoken. Only the sound of the wind and the rhythm of their hearts echoed. But for two people who had once lived in silence, such stillness was the most honest form of closeness. A reminder that love, in the end, doesn't need an audience. It only needs the courage to stay. And perhaps, for the first time, Wang Yibo and Xiao Zhan no longer needed to pretend. They only needed to be themselves, and let the world hear their story through their gazes, smiles, and silence. A silence that no longer hurt, but freed them.